Today's top story comes out of Tallahassee, where the House Appropriations Committee took up HB 7117. HB 7117 is Ray Rodriguez's bill to limit the amount of THC at 10%. Last week, we reported that the bill passed the Health and Human Services Committee. This week, the bill continued to move throughout its legislative journey and cleared the committee on a party line vote. The bill is now headed to the House floor. But what happened in the committee hearing this week? Representative Rodriguez, as you know from last week's show, is basing his proposal on a study that found cannabis with higher levels of THC could lead to psychosis. We took a deeper look into this study and the bill itself last week, so swing on over to that episode if you want a refresh. So, what happened to the bill this week? Tuesday's House Appropriations Committee meeting was emotionally charged. There were fiery exchanges from veterans, industry leaders, patients, and patient advocates. First, let's break down the amendments that were proposed. 3 amendments were proposed in total. Amendment 1 provides $350,000 in funding to the Florida Department of Health for implementation of the THC cap. The committee adopted this amendment into the bill. The second amendment was proposed by Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith. The amendment would add addiction or dependence to an opioid drug as a qualifying condition to become a medical cannabis patient. So here, Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith is trying to expand the list of qualifying conditions a patient can have to receive a medical card in Florida. Currently, there are 13 qualifying conditions a patient can have to receive a medical card. This amendment garnered support from other representatives. Representative Joe Geller said the amendment was an opportunity to do something about the problem of opioid addiction in Florida, to help people who want to get off the drug. He went on and stated, adding opioid addiction as a qualifying condition will only help people and do no harm. The amendment is needed. Let's take a look at the opioid situation in Florida. In 2017, we had 6,178 opioid-related deaths. That represents 17 Floridians dying every day. And it was an 8% increase over the prior year, according to the annual report from the Florida Medical Examiners Commission. Medical cannabis has become not a gateway drug, but almost as an exit drug for addiction to opiates. Cannabis has helped people wean themselves off even a more powerful medicine that has the ability to kill them. During the debate on this second proposed amendment, Representative Ralph Masulo, a Citrus County Republican and dermatologist, acknowledged Florida's opioid crisis, but he said he was concerned the proposal would be substituting one addiction with an equally addicting drug, speaking of cannabis. That quote shows the lack of understanding on a scientific level some lawmakers have about cannabis as a plant and as a medicine. Representative Guillermo Smith fired back and said for many patients, medical cannabis has become an exit drug for their addiction to opiates. The committee hearing this week was filled with a lot of members of the public, one being veteran and Florida resident Kelly Waller's parrot. She said she used medical cannabis to wean herself off prescription painkillers she had become hooked on. She explained that I'm a better mom, I'm a better nurse, and I'm a better human being. This second proposed amendment to add a new qualifying condition, which is the opioid addiction, that failed. I'm not sure why it did. Does it have something to do with the pharmaceutical industry? Potentially, but I really don't know, but it's something to think about. If this amendment passed and was enacted into the bill, you or someone you know who was swept up into the opioid crisis that is killing thousands of Americans each year would have qualified to get into the cannabis program in Florida and get those opiates out of your life. To add a layer of irony to this, our Attorney General, Ashley Moody, is putting together an opioid task force and was silent during the majority of the hearing. She could potentially use cannabis as a tool to clean up our state. Moving on to the third proposed amendment, also by Carlos Guillermo Smith, this amendment drops the THC cap completely. In supporting the amendment, Carlos Guillermo Smith said the cap will force patients to smoke more or get pushed into the black market for more supply. If any of the amendments had a shot of passing, this one had the least. This is the whole crux of the bill. So I personally did not think this had a shot. But Guillermo Smith brings up a great point. He brings up the black market. If signed, the THC cap would in theory push patients back into the unregulated black market. Every state is contending with a black market that composed of more than 85% of cannabis sales in North America in 2016. One benefit of legalizing the plant in a medical or adult use form is to reduce the sales of unregulated black market products. We have no idea what's in those plants. There could be pesticides or other laced with other chemicals. Continuing the story with comments made by members of the public. There was a wide diversity of people, social workers, veterans, dispensary owners, recovering addicts, cancer patients, all spoke at the hearing. Jim Rossico was live tweeting all of the quotes. It was amazing. I'm going to attach that link to his feed in the show notes so you can go and get some more details. One compelling member of the public was a man who said he has osteoarthritis. He has no cartilage left in his lower joints and says he will be essentially sentenced to home imprisonment if a cap passes. He won't be able to walk. He went on to explain that he needed a high THC dose. Being a cancer survivor, having no thyroid, he needed high doses of THC to get into his blood system to make sure he was medicated. The thing is that some conditions require THC to provide relief. THC has important medical benefits to certain conditions, for example, Alzheimer's, where a main issue is lack of appetite. THC provides appetite-stimulating effects and helps patients maintain a stable body weight. Continuing on with HIV and AIDS, these patients need the appetite-stimulating effect of THC. THC can sometimes double the patient's appetite and helps them retain a stable body weight over a long period of time. Ray Rodriguez's bill begs the question of who is best suited and positioned to decide what THC content is going to be the most effective, lawmakers or a doctor. Lawmakers obviously chimed in the debate. Starting with Representative John Cortez, a Democrat out of Kissimmee, he explained that the bill was useless in his opinion, and that dispensaries are already selling flower with 16% THC and vape cartridges with higher concentrations than that. Cortez asked, "Why are we going back?" referencing the low THC days in 2014. Tensions continued to flare throughout the discussion of the measure, culminating when Tyler King, who owns a CBD shop in Gainesville, accused the committee of second-guessing patients' needs. King went up to the podium and said, "It's an insult for all of you to sit here and act like you know what's better for us when you don't." Representative Carrie Pigman, an Avon Park Republican, left the committee room when King spoke. As Representative Pigman walked out, King, gesturing at him, said, "Now he's walking out of the room because I called him out." This outburst prompted Committee Chairman Travis Cummings to call the sergeant, who, accompanied by his aides, closed in on King and others. Cummings scolded King and said, "Let me tell you something, don't get personal. Personal insults are not going to be tolerated, folks. I don't care what side you're on." AltMed, also known as Move, has been the most vocal dispensary about this issue. Their Director of Governmental Affairs, Ron Watson, spoke at the hearing, and the company released a public statement this week. In their public statement, AltMed formally opposes the House bill and explains that the research Ray Rodriguez is using is flawed. In closing on the bill, Ray Rodriguez again turned to the research, showing THC has increased greatly in cannabis over the years, suggesting the plant is too potent now. As Ron Watson told lawmakers, the data in the study means that no scientifically valid conclusion can be drawn. But the study is more flawed than that. It was an observational study and did not verify causation whatsoever. Another difference is that all of the cannabis collected was in Europe. The study was not done on domestically grown U.S. cannabis. Yes, we do have a psychosis problem in this country, but it's not being caused by cannabis. It's being caused by things like Ritalin. In continuing to support his bill, in addition to reinforcing this study, Ray Rodriguez explained that the bill has many good things in it. He mentioned the waiver of the $75 fee to get a card for military veterans. He went on to say that lab testing and other quality assurance measures are written into the bill. Veterans at the hearing responded and said it was wrong to tie their benefits to the potency cap, and explained that we can't put this cap on the backs of veterans. Rodriguez also kept mentioning New Jersey and explained that they implemented a THC cap. But here's the thing with New Jersey. New Jersey is a CBD program, like we had before, basically what we had. It begs the question again, do we want to go back to 2014 instead of moving forward and progressing? Governor Ron DeSantis just improved our program greatly by lifting the ban on smokable whole flower. This would set us back years of work. Representative Rodriguez drew comparisons to Amsterdam, which placed a cap on their THC as well. But here's the problem with Amsterdam. Amsterdam doesn't even have a medical or recreational program. What they have is a program of tolerance. So you can go to their coffee shops where they have cannabis and you could purchase the cannabis and use it on site. But their cannabis does not come from a legal regulated source. In Amsterdam, or the Netherlands in general, it's illegal to grow and give to the coffee shops. They get their cannabis from the black market. Amsterdam should not be viewed as a model. Representative Rodriguez is comparing apples to oranges in this scenario. Let's touch quickly on the bill's effect on Florida MMTCs. If signed into law, this bill would take effect next January, giving growers time to adjust their products. The proposed 10% cap would essentially cut in half the THC levels in the cannabis now being grown by half of our medical cannabis operators. Right now, the Florida MMTCs are averaging between 15 and 24% THC in their cannabis. In addition to having to go back to the drawing board and come up with new genetics or alter the plants in some sort of way, licensed growers of medical cannabis have billions of dollars invested in the ground already. They've been cultivating cannabis above 10% THC levels for nearly 2 years now, and would only have until January to sell their inventory and then have to start cultivating less potent strains. Hypothetically speaking, if the bill is signed, what do these MMTCs do with their current crops with the THC levels above 10%? There is a silver lining in all this, folks. First, no companion bill exists in the Senate, so the proposal's future could die in the Senate. There's only a few weeks to go in the legislative session, and no companion bill exists, nor is there a potential Senate sponsor. If a Senate companion bill does come up, and hypothetically worst case scenario, we lose on that too, don't forget DeSantis is still there. He wanted to lift the smoking ban, but does he want to send this program back and lose 5 years of progress? I'm not sure. Speaking of the Senate President Bill Galvano, Republican out of Bradenton, commented on the bill this week and said he supports the policy. However, he believes it would be challenging to reopen issues this late in session related to medical cannabis. Another silver lining, in my opinion, there were many good points made in the hearing publicly where lawmakers, people of influence heard. A lot of passionate people were testifying, some which became too passionate at times and almost got kicked out, but their point was made. It proves that Floridians will not take this line down. If you want to read more about this story, head on over to Derek Ham's article in the Orlando Sentinel, linked below in the show notes.